I'm a little bit old school. I loved the old entrepreneur books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and just the ancient wisdom is still great, still great. But Zig Ziglar is one of my favorites, and one of my favorite ones. Your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Tiffany Alexander, and this is Unveiling Journeys. I'm so excited to have you with me today. If you've been here before, thank you. Welcome back. And if this is your first time, I love networking. I love being a super connector. I love attending high level masterminds. And when I show up, I say, who do you need to know? I'm an open book, but also, who do you know that I need to know? And then you just show up and be your real self. And hopefully that's a good thing. And in that, that's exactly how I met our guest today. And I love his stuff so much, his like product, his invention, and his like brain all about it. So I brought him on the show so you guys could hear about him and what he's up to. So with that, I'd like to introduce Derek. Welcome to the show. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you're doing right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tiffany. And yeah, I think you and me both. We love the networking. We are people. And I would describe myself as a really ambitious entrepreneur that is just on the rise. And I mean that because I've actually taken my business, Whisper Innovations. I'm the CEO and co-founder of it. It is a battery electric lawn care company that utilizes robotic mowers. I like Roomba for the lawn, except they don't suck. They do a great job cutting the grass. And we do seasonal and holiday lighting. So that was kind of the local branch here. And we have been doing that for 5 years, my business partner and I. I had a different background, a different journey before that, which is very different from being in landscaping but always fascinated by technology. That being said, we ran across a guy at a trade show and he said, his name was Jesse Stoddard, a wonderful man, great, brilliant mind for marketing. And he said, I walked this whole show and I've come back to you twice because this is what you're doing with robots and better equipment and lighting. Like, this is so cool. I actually just started this process of connecting with this amazing franchisor or amazing person who starts franchises, and he goes, this model is so cool, I want to introduce you. And we did. We met Rick Grossman, who now, spoiler alert, is our franchise coach. He has taken our business model and made it into a rapid expansion project. We thought we would take on investors or we'd slowly grow, but franchising really put us like in conversations all over the country of South Carolina and Idaho launching and Arizona and Texas. It's all, potentially Whisper now, but the franchise model is beautiful because I don't have to say like, oh, I have to own 100% of this and take on all the responsibilities and the labor and everything. Franchising automates it. And I'm a big automation guy. I lean into AI and automation because I believe if done right, it can make us more human. Case in point, what we're trying to do right now, my cutting thing is I want to find, just like robots on the front line of the lawns, taking up that labor is a massive issue in our industry, in the green industry. Robots has allowed us to scale because the robots are doing one of the most menial jobs, just the cutting of the lawn, allowing my guys to focus in on the more fine detail work, expand their abilities and what they're good at, and expand their skills. So we've done that on the front lines with robots and automation. On the back end, as you get that company and it scales and it grows, which is the path we're going through right now, it creates a bigger administerial load. And AI is the solution for that because there's so many productivity tools and use cases for AI to really go and take off the menial, work. Like I know how to do basic math. I don't need to have me crunching numbers on pencil and paper. I can have AI. It
Yeah.
was the previous generation was software, but now it's AI. There's more of a communication. There's more input. So really excited because our AI and robotic focused franchise is going to be the best investment to future proof any young entrepreneur that wants to get into the space, or even existing landscaper that's running into the hurdles, as I call it.
I like this because in California, they're always like pushing to go really like battery powered, and obviously this would have to be battery powered something. And then
Exactly.
also I think of sunny California, like we don't have snow, and all the people, all the companies, all the beautiful manscaped, manicured lawns because we've got water. And with water, we have grass. So we're like, oh, whatever. We're just free flowing grass over here. We could have from LA to like until it snows. And then I'm in the valley until it upwards of everything. So it's like, imagine if you just had a little robot that was like going and doing this for you. Like you said, like a Roomba. So I'm excited for you because this was your thing, your baby, your invention. And now you're allowing other people to kind of come in to not like micromanage that as a franchise. It's so fun. But I want to do this. I want to hear your story kind of from the beginning because everybody had to get to where they are now.
Sure.
And I want to hear like why at the end of this, like why this is so important to you. So do me a favor. Where are you from? Like would you
Yeah.
want to be when you grew up? You didn't you didn't start there.
Yeah, I'm from Mesa, Arizona. I was born and raised in the Valley of the Sun. I tell people I was raised there, but I escaped. I moved up to Washington when I was 17. Really love the people and family in the desert. It's a great place in the wintertime. I aspire to be a snowbird and to spend my winters down there when it's kind of gray and gloomy up here in Washington. No, had a really big life change. Honestly, we had a lot going for us in Arizona. I grew up with grandparents 5 minutes from me, both sets of grandparents. And I don't want to get in the sob story, but we had three grandparents, cousin, and a close family friend all pass away in about 3 years. So Arizona kind of became a gloomy place. And I saw it in my mother that she had lost both her parents and she had family up in Washington and we had vacation up here and we really loved the area. And we sat down as a family and said, what would this look like if we uprooted? And, there was still a lot of family on my dad's side, but they were slowly moving out. And that was a big part of my journey because I had to start over in the middle of my junior year. I did make the choice. I agreed with my family that I wanted a fresh start. I'm one of those sick individuals that actually likes change, that likes throwing yourself into the unknown and figuring it out. If I was like a kid getting thrown into a lake to learn how to swim, like, yeah, okay, do it. Like, I want to figure it out. I learn the best when I'm just thrown into, high waters. But honestly, I was ambitious. I wanted to be either an astronaut or the president of the United States.
Oh, that's ambitious. I
So
know
I
because
was
me
like,
too.
if I can't work it out as an astronaut, I'll just become one of those politicians and work my way up to become the president of the United States. And I was like, yeah, no big deal. Like, and then I quickly saw that other people had much more aptitude for physical things. I was a skinny little like twig of a kid, and I'm like, I think I probably couldn't go up into space. I think my skinny little bones would break and not. But I always had that ambition. I always had that drive, and I was a scrappy little entrepreneur from little. We talk about lemonade stand, hawking newspapers, starting little businesses, inventing little doodads, selling things on the playground. Like I was that scrappy entrepreneur. We didn't have a lot. We had enough and never went to bed hungry. I had great parents that provided for us, but I was like, I wanted more. I wanted to figure this game out of life, and I figured out money was one of the things that was the it made life in this game interesting. So I always sought after it. But I finished graduating from up here in Washington. I went to travel a lot of the world. I spent 3 years in Australia. My mother always says you had a foot in the suitcase ever since seeing more of the world. I didn't fly till I was like 15, 16 years old, and I don't want to know how much I've flown now. But Australia, 3 years, Hawaii off and on, 5 years, a year in Singapore, and yeah, and just love to travel. Been to Europe, but those are all places I lived in. And yeah, I don't want to know how many places I've traveled. I love flying those.
I think exposure to other countries is imperative. Like just to see that we're not in our own little bubble here in the United States, because it's kind of just we just go and we do and we have these privileges and we have this this like level of human that we are that you see highs and lows, but also to see that in other places almost gives you like that extra gratitude of like, man, we do live in a great country, but also it is up to me to do all the little stuff like recycle and show up and like be good and don't throw trash out. And just like all those little things are different in every aspect of every culture. So I think traveling lets you appreciate just more of being a better human.
I couldn't agree more. I identify with the places. I feel like every place that I've lived, especially traveling to some extent, but every place that I lived has become a part of me. Like a part of my soul is influenced where the places I've lived, whether that's, the ohana and the close connection of Hawaii and family and community, or Singapore and its modernization, its striving for excellence, its ambition. I love that Singapore had that spirit to it. They're always seen as the jewel of Asia, and they really have created a garden in a city. It is gorgeous, and I'm living there for a year. I'm glad I actually was there 2019. I planned to stay longer, but I actually got out before the pandemic, and
Right.
bless my wife, she it was like, hey, I woke up in the night and I think we need to move back. I'm thinking, this is the pinnacle of my career. I should back you up. I studied intercultural peace building and entrepreneurship.
That was your
So I
degree?
thought, yeah, it was my degree.
I love that. That's
So
so fun.
yeah, and I was on the Mandarin track. I learned Mandarin Chinese, 我说一点点中文，我的中文不熟练. So like for my listeners, it's pretty rusty, but I can have a conversation. And I thought, okay, I was going to go to school for supply chain management. Zach Tilton, the wonderful man he is, got me at my freshman year and was like, "Hey, you should join the peace building certificate." It was a certificate program. I'm like, "Peace building?" He's like, "Yes," and he was so passionate. And I was like, "Okay, I'll check this out." So it turned from, "Yeah, I'm gonna do the certificate in peace building," until and actually shifted my major. I was gonna go do supply chain and economics. Ended up doing intercultural peace building and entrepreneurship. And at the time, I was like, how do you put these pieces together? Peace building. Do I go into HR, or do I try to like go on to further education and become a diplomat or something? What does that track even look like? Because I'm the first college graduate of my entire family, so I was like, and my parents didn't really push me. They're like, "Oh, you get good grades." It's like, "Well, yeah, my counselor told me to get into college. You got to get good grades." And then get into college, and they're like, "Oh, if you want to do grad school and other programs, you should also have good grades in college too." I was like, "Oh, okay. I thought you said D's equal degrees." But I guess if I'm thinking I want to do grad school at some point, I actually have to really study for the first time. I do pretty well in school. I didn't really have to study in high school, but when I got to college, it was like two things. One, I was around people that love to learn. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, these are my people. They were excited. They were offering great insights. In high school, it was like picking their nose and, oh, do we have to be here? And da, da, da.
Yeah,
I'm like,
right. Just make it. Just make it up.
dude, wait, learning. Like, come on. So I loved college, loved that passion. But I was like, well, what is that next step? And I remember I found myself in nonprofit management. I had worked with the Arbinger Institute when I was in university. I got to be a facilitator with them and got to see how they were working with the Polynesian Cultural Center, which is the biggest on Oahu. It is so I went to Brigham Young University, Hawaii. On Oahu, the Polynesian Cultural Center is the largest attraction on all of Oahu.
Oh, wow.
Imagine all the cultures from the islands represented largely by the students that are going to BYU Hawaii. I didn't work for that. I don't have Polynesian heritage. I have Native American heritage, which I'm very proud of. But it was awesome to see the cultures coming together. And then the Arbinger Institute really worked to help people see people as people.
That's cool.
And we saw transformation. In fact, it's interesting. The PCC, their KPI is customer satisfaction by villages. Like each section of the PCC, if you haven't seen it, if you've seen it, it's amazing.
Oh,
But
yeah.
PCC has villages. So you can see Samoa and Tonga and Fiji. The PCC ranks their KPI as customer satisfaction. So the Arbinger Institute, I mean, think closest thing to Arbinger, think of like Stephen Covey's work, Seven Habits of Highly Effective, that body of work. In fact, the PCC had been through that program and we're like, hey, we should introduce the Arbinger Institute. It was a great collaboration between BYU Hawaii and the Arbinger Institute out of Utah. And we had Dr. Chad Ford was kind of the branch to allow the students to practice it and to implement it. So New Zealand had the worst customer service score. And they said, okay, we'll trial it. We'll demo it with New Zealand. If you can fix New Zealand, maybe we have something.
Hope.
We're like, so the facilitators that were working with them took them through the Arbinger course, got them. It's just this beautiful body of work to help people see people and understand their needs matter just as much as their own. And as humans, we typically either put ourselves above others or we actually put ourselves below others. Like, oh, I'm not smart enough to be like
I could see
Tiffany.
that.
She's just so good at this. Or "Well, I'm better than, Joe over here. He's a numbskull." It's a real beautiful body of work. After they implemented that, now they're not allowed to they weren't allowed to change their performance. Their performance is kind of a rote script, but their customer service score went from like bottom 6 to second within a
What?
couple of months.
That's
And so
impressive.
the PCC presidency was like, "What did you do?" They're like, "Oh, we." They're like, "Did you change your script? Or you're not allowed to do that." And they're like, "No, we implemented Arbinger." By the way, number one, Samoa, the guy does a comedy routine. Nobody can unseat that. Everybody loves. I think it's Kip. Someone's gonna hear this and be like, "It's not Kip." I think it was Kip. He does this. He's like a Polynesian comedian. He is a wonderful man. He climbs a tree, opens coconuts up. He's hugely entertaining. You can't dethrone Kip. But yeah, Arbinger was the company that I took me to Singapore.
Yeah.
I
And then no, so in 2019, when your wife's like, we got to get, like, what did you decide to leave for your company, or were you able to come back home and,
Yeah, it was. So here I am thinking, oh, I have my dream job. I'm working in Asia, in Singapore. It's this really cool place. You know, it was good pay. It's good people. I had helped restructure the company. I'm like, everything is at the pinnacle. My wife's like, literally woke up and was like, I think we should move back. And I'm like, is this just concerns or fears or? And it was a hard time in our relationship because I didn't fully accept it at the time first. And we went back for the summer and she stayed and I was just she's like, "Well, go wrap it up because I'm not coming back." And I'm like, "Okay, well, that's pretty firm."
holy
And
crap?
I had been softening to it, but when I came back, part of me was torn. I'm like, "Here I am, kind of what I felt at the pinnacle of my career, and my family's not there."
So is it all really worth it when like,
Exactly. It's like, "Well, why do I work?" I'm not working just like to build my career, prestige, or money. I was like, I work for my family. Like that's how I show my wife I love you. And she's a stay-at-home mom and she homeschools our kids. And this is the lifestyle we wanted. I would work, and that's how I show. I love her. I support her. I trust her to raise our children. So if I don't have my family, what is the meaning of my work?
mm,
So, yeah, family values is my number one priority, God and family, but work provides for that, and work, is meaningful. It's the journey, it's the mountain that we're all climbing, right? So, I went, "Okay, well, I guess this isn't it," and it was hard and wrapped that chapter of my life up, and here we are sitting back in the United States. I had sold my home to get by while I was starting up a new job, and unfortunately, for some reason, salary was not coming in from that job. It was a nonprofit. It wasn't getting funded fully. And so, I was just at the end of my rope. I was like, I have some money, but I wasn't sure what to do. And so I didn't want to completely deplete that trying to work for this nonprofit, a beautiful vision. But I knew I needed to keep paying bills and not just eat away at my life savings. So I drove Uber and was trying to figure it out. And it was
yeah.
at that time, shout out to everybody who's been scrappy enough to make Uber pay the bills or is still. It was a great way to still provide and keep that dignity when the nonprofit didn't bring a salary, but I was needing more,
Mhm.
and I just was looking for other things. My good friend Ethan Hansen and now business partner was running his landscaping company, and I actually introduced him to the Arbinger body of work. And I said, "Hey, I'm having a hard time finding enough guys," and he said, "Hey, I'm looking for some help." And my wife said, "Hey, Derek needs more money because we don't want to erode our life savings. We sold our house." And so I'm, working with him, and he's got the landscaping company, like so many people out there. He's got the mower, the blower, the truck. And I go out and I'm pushing the lawnmower. That's what I can do. And he's doing everything else. And I'm like, I sit down at the end of the day, I'm like, "Hey, you just use robots to do this part? Like half the day, all I was doing is pushing the lawn. You're saying you're having a labor problem. Like you have good customers, you got a business here, but half the time and the menial labor is something that could be automated."
Mm,
And so I started thinking about it. And when I was working with the Arbinger branch in Singapore, we had done a big restructure. And I worked with businesses a lot of times in kind of that process of change and restructuring. And I went, it would be hard to take this old thing and make it completely new. I think this needs to be a separate company. And if we're going to be robotic lawn mowing, let's be battery electric at the same time because we want to be the most forward thinking like tech company. Let's find innovative tools and things. So I went to him and I said, "You know what? I think I have an idea for your solution, but I'm going to make my own company. I'm going to build this. And he's like, don't leave me behind. Like, what do we need to do? And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I have a little bit of seed money. I have some knowledge. You have started and run a business before. Let's put our heads together. Let's make this happen. I outlined the vision of where it was and what I wanted it to be. And yeah, he's just like, I'm in. He made a significant investment. I leveraged my home and we started into it. So for clarification, I have not actually invented robotic lawnmowers. There are key companies that have been in the space for decades, but it's all in Europe. It's super big in Europe.
Really?
Yeah, Husqvarna's been over there for a long time. They started out with a little turtle-looking robot with solar panels on it. It was very forward-thinking because I think the industry is going to come back around to that and have
Yeah, that makes
solar-powered
sense.
units. But yeah, it was we put ourselves into a challenging situation because we had started the concept in 2019. Like I said, pandemic hadn't happened yet. We thought this is a great economy right now, great market. Let's create this business. We had a pretty wild idea. Let's buy a Tesla Model X. That'll be our flagship vehicle. It was practical too because it could tow 5,000 pounds. So we could pull like grassy equipment because you're not going to put those in the Tesla. So we're like, all the grassy stuff, all the dirty stuff will be in the trailer. The Tesla will stay nice. It'll be just transporting the people. It was a lot of people were like, that's crazy. You don't do landscaping out of a Tesla. Model
I
X is
know, right?
really expensive. We're like, but we're trying to be smart about it. We bought a used one that
Yeah.
had grandfathered supercharging, which meant that they had offered supercharging for life of the ownership and it would transfer. So my routine is like, we bought this really expensive thing. I still remember this. My origin of starting this business was I only paid myself on billable hours and I tried to make the big investment we made as lean as possible. The battery electric equipment was expensive. The Tesla was expensive. Our fuel was free. We could supercharge for free. So I found like 15 minutes from my house, a supercharging station next to a gym. And my process was I'm going to plug in, get all my energy for the day, and
Yeah.
I'm going to exercise and get myself physically and mentally focused because exercise has always been as mental as it is physical for me. And that's how I started my day. I would do that. And then during college, I used to sell pest control. I was door knocking. I did really well with it, did management, and knew I could rely on that. So I was like, okay, I can make this business work because it's lean. I'm only paying myself on billable hours and I know how to sell. So I just knew I never was like, oh, is this going to work? Cause I was like, no, I know how to sell.
Yeah, yeah.
I can do this. The tools are there. And yeah, we just grew and grew. I think that's
Oh,
a
that's
lot of the
incredible.
background.
Whenever you face some of those hard times, what were some of the key people in your life and what were they telling you? Like those little nuggets that you're like, man, I clung to that piece of advice to keep going.
Yeah, that's really good. I have to believe that my previous boss in Singapore, he saw what we were doing there in our restructure. He, even though I did the entrepreneurship program at BYU Hawaii, he looked at me and said, Derek, have you ever thought about starting your own business? And I said, well, I've been entrepreneurial. I've thought about it. I haven't found the right thing. He's like, well, I think you'd be really good at it. And it's like, not that he wanted me to not work for him, but he saw something in me. And I had another Mark True of, again, of the Arbinger Institute. Love those guys. They're amazing people. If nothing else, go check out Arbinger for your listeners. But Mark sat me down when he knew I was going out to Singapore and he was talking about the Singapore branch. And he said, Derek, because I explained that I wanted to do an MBA or go on to further education, he goes, if you can go to Singapore and transform that business it was stuck in a couple places, it was bottlenecked and had some other issues with it. He goes, if you could help that company really thrive and change and make the steps to he's like, it's as good as an MBA. He says, I've taught MBA classes.
Yeah.
And sometimes the MBA class, the best MBA class was, hey, we're starting a business. If your business is still in business at the end of the year or the program, you passed.
What? That's, yeah. I mean, I guess you think about it because it's like 18 months is like the failure rate for a lot of businesses. If you can make it past, I'm like, everybody should celebrate their 2-year anniversary
Yeah.
for
Year
any
one and year
business they
five,
start.
18 months. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I hear that too. Oh, yeah. In the first year and a half or first 5 years, it's kind of two inflection points where it can fail. Knock on wood, we're past that five.
Yeah.
And there's been other great mentors. Maya McKinley, he sat us down as one of our first kind of business advisors. And my business partner and I had started out with the concept to sell the robots. I mean, my door to door background, my brother in law, who's now a franchisee, he was our first employee and he came from that same background. He did the pest control sales, the door knocking. We're like, we could just go out to the neighborhoods and door knock and sell, auto mowers to everybody, sell these robot mowers. It'll be great. And it was a slower adoption rate than we thought because it's a more complex sale and it's a more dynamic market than just knock, knock, knock. Hey, there's bugs in your house. We get rid of them. There's a lot actually emotion tied into the lawn. It's like, hey, I want to have it mowed this way. And I think it's weird if it's this, or they have all these unwritten
Yeah,
rules of the
I could see
lawn.
that.
The culture of the lawn in America is kind of sacred. They're like, you lawn mow like your dad, you don't mow in the rain, you mow in straight lines, and these robotic mowers were unconventional. At that time they were bouncing around and you had to wire them
Like a
in. So
Roomba.
yeah, like a Roomba. But we would wire these systems in. So as soon as we got our first sale, my brother-in-law Ben and I, we would have to then stop sales and we'd have to turn into the installers. So we'd have to get this machine out. We called it the sewing machine. It takes a spool of wire and it buries it in the ground, like cuts into the ground and lays this wire behind it. Because the old school robots, you'd plug in this charging station, you'd wire the yard up with this loop, and it was essentially the wall of the robot. It would feel that electrical signal and stop and turn around. It would just bounce around, but all the lawn would get cut. But it would take so much of our time. Like at most, we could make like a sale a day, and we wasn't really growing to the rate that we wanted it to. And Jeremiah looked at our business and said, why don't you turn this into a robots as a service platform? Why don't you lease these robots out? If you said there's some complexity around it and the buying is difficult, why don't you they're paying for lawn care, right? If someone's wanting to pay for lawn care, sell them lawn care, just do it with robots.
Right.
And there was a tax strategy and there were some changes there, but he really helped us to rethink about how we were running the business. And I will say this, I'll back up. There was kind of a self-directed stat or statistic that I found out that really made an impact on me. And it was when I was doing my research about the battery electric equipment. I found out that 5% of all US air pollution came from gas-powered lawn equipment. So that that peace building and entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship is kind of that merger. Like think about like Tom's. Tom's was the first one to say, "Hey, we're going to sell these shoes, but we're also going to give back." And so I'm taking these dual courses about peace building and thinking about community and resources and people. And then I'm doing this entrepreneurship. I'm like, social entrepreneurship is that middle point that I felt resonated with my career. And I'm like, what is that for me? And so when I found out, like, if you really cared about like health and the environment, this is a low hanging fruit. You're talking about 5% of all US air pollution. So that means, yeah, worldwide, like this is a huge
Yeah.
polluter. And I wanted something that could be meaningful to me and like resonate. So that's what started to drive me. And I would find, allies and mentors that were like, yeah, I mean, the lawn care industry is overlooked.
Mhm.
And people think, oh, it's robotic car, self-driving cars, which are great, and all these different things that it's gonna. And they're overlooking this low-hanging fruit because right now, every piece of equipment that's used by gas landscapers, there's battery electric equivalents. There's in 2025, it was not always that way in 2020. In 2025,
Yeah,
it's
there's
one to one. There's perfect solutions. So it's this low hanging fruit, and there's a couple companies out there that have caught the vision that other people are just looking past. And then when you pair that with AI and automation to really make sure those companies are the smartest, most forward thinking companies, landscaping touches everybody. It's so wide. It's the original like entrepreneur thing you could do. Kids even do it. They start up lawn mowing
right.
businesses.
Yeah.
So this
Me too.
touches like
I mow
every
my
walk
grandma's
of
yard.
life. Exactly. There's probably tons of listeners like, I remember when I pushed, mow around a lawn for 20 bucks. Well, guess what? Robotic mowing starts at 15 bucks a month.
Oh,
So you can't even pay a neighborhood kid less than 20 bucks to get your
no,
lawn
you
mowed.
can't. Oh my gosh. That's incredible.
So it needs to be everywhere. We need to go through this rapid expansion phase
Yeah.
and networking and finding amazing people like you, Tiffany, and through the Pantheon group that we've been connected through, the pieces are coming together. They really are.
Oh my gosh. Okay. You have such an incredible story in this, and I love your heart in that. And you get to share like why and what. At this point, somebody's like, I want to know more. I want to follow you. I want to reach out to you to ask more questions. What's your favorite way for people to come find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best. I love connecting and engaging with community there on LinkedIn. So yeah, I haven't really started a YouTube or a podcast of my own or anything. But yeah, honestly, if you hit me up, you add me there, I'll probably start a conversation with you, and we'll yeah, love to chat
Perfect.
more.
Yeah, and if you're like, I don't know, no, because there's a few ways to spell Derek. Come find me, and then I'll connect you with Derek.
There you
And
go.
then all the links down below and all the show notes, you can reach out to him so that way you can say hi, and that way you can ask kind of where he's at in this process because you have a lot of stuff in the works that you're like, my gosh, launching and doing and making everything grow bigger. You've been amazing. What is one last little nugget that you want to leave with people before we go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit old school. I loved the old entrepreneur books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and just the ancient wisdom is still great. But Zig Ziglar is one of my favorites, and one of my favorite ones. Your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude.
He has such great quotes. That one's a really good one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a wonderful show. Thank you, everybody, for staying for the whole episode. And then I will see you guys on the next one. Everybody, have a great day. Bye.
Take care.